Today's guest is Chris Lengieza. He's the Vice President at Procore Technologies. All right, Chris, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad to be here. It's a pleasure.
I love that thing you have on the wall there. It says "Living the Dream."
Yeah, it's kind of the motto a little bit around here. And last year for Christmas, my wife was so sick and tired of hearing me, and we're on Zoom calls all day, right? And so everybody's like, "How you doing?" I'm living the dream. She's like, "Maybe if I get him a sign, he just won't say it anymore, and I won't have to listen to it." And then the reality of it, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, it's on your wall, isn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, I still say it all the time." My other go to is just happy to be here. A little nod to the Blue Angels on that one, but yeah, it's just a good things to keep the momentum up early.
No, it's perfect. I mean, I go through your background, and constructing complexes in and around golf clubs and resorts. That sounds like living the dream.
It was, yeah. I was chasing that dream too. I went to school to be a civil engineer because I wanted to build golf courses, and I realized that I'm just not a good artist. So, like, being an architect wasn't going to be the right thing, but math and numbers were really great for me. And so that was like always the dream. And I ended up in construction. And then I found this magical intersection of a construction company that built golf courses and clubhouses. And so I got to spend about 5 or 6 years of my life really like focusing on that space, which was like two passions for me coming together, which was really nice.
Nice. You say golf, so did you watch the Masters?
Of course. It's like my favorite week of the year for two reasons. One, it's the Masters, and two, my wife and I's anniversary usually falls on Masters weekend. So yeah, super happy for Rory. Great win for him. Lots of, as you know, lots of ups and downs during that broadcast, which makes it fun too.
Yeah, I mean, how emotional was it? I mean, we all felt it. And without the ups and downs, would it have been as special?
It never is, right? And I think the moment that hit me emotionally, I have kids, three kids, two girls and a boy. And at the end, when he kind of went over and gave his daughter a hug, it dawned on me that he has not won a major event since he's had kids. And I was just like, what a special moment, right? Like, this is not like Rory's won plenty of tournaments, but they've never seen, Poppy's never seen her dad in this moment with so much probably energy and emotion as just experience. So that'll be something special that'll be around for a long time.
Yeah. So you went from the construction side to more of the technology side. What has been your ups and downs along your journey?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I didn't go too far, right? Because when I was in the construction industry, about the last 7 or 8 years of my career were focused on operational efficiency and implementing technology. So I was already kind of a tech guy a little bit. And then when I made the shift over into the software world, the big thing for me is I knew that I could help more people in the industry by being on the tech side and really like showing them what is possible with technology and construction. And so the ups and downs have really been we've gone through these waves in the industry of tech adoption, right? We had all the apps in the early like 2015 to 2018s, and everybody was getting an app for everything. And then it was like, oh, we have app fatigue, right? Now we have too many apps. So then it was like, okay, we started to see some of these platforms like Procore kind of emerge, and so people were started to get onto them. And now we're in this like other interesting piece, and it's like we had a little bit of a lull adoption. Like, you've got all the early movers, and now you're just trying to fight to get everybody on the system. But are we really seeing the changes that we want to see? And then, then this thing called AI showed up. And it's not, people say it like it just showed up 6 months ago. It's been around for a long time, but like it really started to make an impact. And I'm super energized about what the future looks like because of how fast the technology has moved. And I think it really does unblock us from things that we've been trying to do for a very long time around productivity, about how we transfer knowledge across the workforce, about how we make better data driven decisions in our industry.
Yeah.
And then, maybe the big one is like, how do we change the way that we design and build buildings differently in the future than we have for the last 50 years?
Yeah. I mean, how does it unblock us? Is it just sort of, the movement of the data across different things, or like how do you Does it unblock us with AI?
So I think there's two pieces. One, I think we've always struggled to collect a lot of data and information in our industry, right? You got to get somebody to plug it in on an app, right? And they got to fill out a form, and then that form's got to be like structured, right? A lot of the tools that we have now, especially with like generative AI and the search capabilities that live with inside of them, allow us to find unstructured data in a way that a human just would spend too much time looking for, right? And so we spent a lot of time trying to really structure it, which then runs into people problems, right? Adoption, usage of the platforms. The other thing that I get really excited about, and I say this, and sometimes people go, "What do you mean?" Is like we've lived in a world where we just digitized paper-based forms, right? You're in the manufacturing space. There's warranties. You got to fill out this form, right, in order to make sure you get the information. So that means somebody took that and probably put it on an iPad or put it in an app, right? And then people just go and still manually fill out the form. Well, I think with where we're going with like conversational I think the way that we interact with software is going to significantly change too.
Mhm.
It'll no longer be somebody just clicking through rows of a form. It'll fill those forms out for you because of the information you've given it in a more natural language interaction, which candidly, I came from construction. That's how you got stuff done. You walked into the trailer, you sat down with the project manager or the superintendent, and you go, "Hey, what are we doing about this? What are we doing about that? Can you go file this?" It's going to be more like that. And then the technology can help us make that a reality.
Yeah, so just like ordering a burger at McDonald's.
Exactly. Like, sure.
So conversational, yeah, that makes sense. Like, oh, what about this? What about that? Instead of
Mhm.
like sit down, clear things off your desk,
Yeah.
start typing stuff in, all the distractions that come with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. No, very cool. For adoption, like AI, sort of leads the way and helps with that. But what other things have helped along the way with adoption and onboarding and stuff like that? Because I know the tools I see are impressive, but I always hear like, how do we get better adoption or engagement or things like that? Procore being the company it is must have learned a lot of things over the years on how to round those edges and push things along.
Yeah. I think there's a few things, right? And we talk about this a little bit in our future state of construction report, but the one is there's a generational and a cultural shift happening in all industries, but especially in construction, and that is that younger employees will switch jobs for technology. They want the technology. They do not want to work somewhere that doesn't invest in technology. I think the stat is like 70% of Gen Z employees would switch jobs for better technology. Think about that, right? 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, nobody was leaving the job they had because, oh, well, they have a better software to use over there, right? And so that's a shift. And I think because of that, leaders at the top level of these companies who aren't maybe of that generation are being forced to kind of open their eyes and say to themselves, if we're not investing in tech, are we really betting against our future workforce?
Got it. It
And and
basically, yeah, bleeds into
and
other areas.
And so we're getting tailwinds of that, of like, hey, the younger generation wants it. We're getting more and more pull, right? I think the second piece is, and this just goes into tech in general, the tools that you can build now today just become much easier to use. And we have this like real obsession with being like customer and field focused, right? And I think early on, like just like the forums, right? We built software to mirror a paper-based form, but it didn't actually help people get their job done really that much better. It just digitized. It might maybe be a little bit faster. And I think what we're seeing now is real big investments in technology that will actually help people get their job done faster and are just so much simpler to use than they were before, right? They don't take a PhD in computer science to understand like how to get in and use them. They're becoming more like the consumer products we use in our personal lives that you can pick it up, you can download the app, and you can start using it in about 5 minutes. And so I think those are the secrets to what will help us understand the adoption problems. And then I think the last one that I'd throw in there is data is going to be the new concrete in construction, right? It's what everything in construction is going to be built on. And leaders, like top level leadership, CIOs, CTOs, they know this. And so you're seeing this desire to make sure that we're seeing the adoption because they know they need to capture the information so they can power the business moving forward. And
Yeah.
that is a top down, bottom up approach usually makes for pretty good drivers of adoption.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just looking at it from both sides of it, so that if one area stalls, there's another area that's still moving.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, that's great. What sort of things, maybe not at the company, but that you're observing in the industry, specifically, could be related to another company or a general type of
hmm
development. Are you curious about?
So one of the things that I've been most curious about recently is wearables. I'm asking myself and I'm asking others in the industry this question, which is, are we finally ready for wearables in construction? We've been talking about wearables in construction. I was actually doing some research on this for a presentation I'm doing since about 2005. So it's been 20 years that we've been talking about wearables. And I think the challenge that we've had with wearables in construction till now is the same problem I was just talking about with the software, which is they're very focused on giving someone else the value, not the person who is actually wearing the wearable, right?
Yeah.
And what I think is a bit of the unlock here is some of the technology that has come around. Like I'm not wearing them right now, but I have a pair of glasses that look just like this that are a pair of meta glasses, right? And so I can take photos, videos, I can use AI at the edge, right where I'm working. And that unlocks a lot of possibilities that I just don't think we had before in wearables. And so this idea of, telepresence, right? Having somebody who's an expert help me solve a problem that I'm right in front of. This brings a point across a point of like, I need to get an answer on this very, very quickly. Oh, I spilled this goo all over my hands. I don't know if I should be going to the hospital or I should just rinse it off in the sink. Can I get a really quick MSDS report and like tell me what to do without before I touch anything? Right? These are like use cases that are really valuable to the wearer of the wearable, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the shift. So I've been tracking that, seeing what people are doing, seeing how consumer products are starting to make their way into our industry. There's a company called Vigil Life that just uses all the normal trackers, Apple Watches, Polar. They integrate into all of them. But there's a company down in Texas called Roger and O'Brien who is using that technology to help them with heat exposure. And so what they're doing is they're basically saying, hey, listen, it's hot in Texas most of the year. You can only be exposed to 120-degree weather for so long before you need to go inside, find a shade structure, get a drink, like all these things. And they're using the data from those health monitors just to provide feedback to the worker. It's like, hey, you know what? We know we say every 20 minutes, but actually your heart rate's been elevated. You've been exhausting yourself more than normal. You should probably take a break sooner, right? And that's valuable to the because nobody wants to like get sick on a job site, nobody wants to get injured on a job site, nobody wants to go to the hospital from dehydration. And so they go, oh yeah, cool, I'll wear this thing because I'm wearing it for other reasons anyways, and I'll share my data because it's meaningful to me, right? So that's an area that's really interesting to me. I think the other one that's really interesting to me is probably no surprises, AI, but more specifically agents
Mm,
around AI. And I I think the interesting piece is, we've seen how this has evolved very, very quickly in construction, but also in general. And I'm a strong believer that, you can have some general agents or some general AI that's okay, right? You can use ChatGPT for a lot of things, but you start going and asking it about like really specific construction questions, you get some real interesting answers. So there will be these like, I call them vertical AIs or specific AIs that are really good at solving specific
yeah.
problems, and I think that's a path. And then the other thing is, how do we actually perform work, right, with agents, right? Like, let's move past the idea of it's just going to help us find information, but how do we actually take that and create an action, body of work, a piece of work that would have taken somebody time, and now they don't have to do it, right? And that's the piece that, like, I think we can really start to unlock, because then when maybe the question is, do we really have a labor problem anymore, or do we have workflow problems, and how we get our work done and processed through the system?
Yeah, the concept of agents is pretty crazy. Like the fact
Hmm.
that I guess the co-founder of HubSpot is making I guess a networking site for agents, and you can
Hmm.
rate them. I mean, so basically, people are all around the world are creating these agents, and people are using these things and evaluating them, and these agents are developing a reputation and a
Yep.
quality associated with them. That's crazy, and the idea that these specialized things are just being created and tested all the time. It blows me away. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I'm very excited. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think agents and I always affectionately refer to them as my artificial interns. If you think about it, right? Like, and this is what people go, "Oh, I asked ChatGPT to help me with this, and it gave me some erroneous answer, and then it made me look dumb." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, hold on, time out. Let's back up for a second. When you hire an intern, do you go to the intern and say, 'Hey, can you prepare my monthly progress report and send it to my boss and not look at it?'"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No, of course not, right? You probably go ask them to say, "Hey, can you pull 3 reports that are going to help me create my monthly progress status report? I will then assemble the report and take it to my boss." And then when the intern gets good at pulling those reports, then you say, "Okay, well, can you compile the summary?" And I'll
yeah,
start reviewing it. And you teach them more and more each time. And the more that they do it, and the more that they do it well,
yeah.
the more trust you build in them, right? And so when people like start to think about that, and I've been at construction conferences, construction tech conferences, and people are like, "Oh, that makes so much sense. I'm going to use that." And I'm like, "Well, it does." And the reason I use the analogy is because everybody's hired an intern, and everybody's had a situation where an intern did something. I mean, we've even seen big companies, right? Like social media interns that post some things on social media. The company's apologizing the next day. It's like, everybody has seen that play out in their world, so they can totally understand. Okay, this is just, I have to treat it the kind of the same way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that analogy. Yes, I'm definitely gonna borrow as well. I like that idea. I think originally I thought maybe like, AI helped augment your abilities. Like it's not
Hmm.
a shortcut, right? But
Hmm.
if you have a certain skill set, then it could extend that. But I like the idea of interns because AIs could come in different forms, and you have to learn how to communicate with the intern. You have to teach it, you have to review
Hmm.
it, and grow. Just the analogy works way better on many levels.
Well, and I agree with your statement too, that it is an augmentation, right? In my opinion, you have to use AI, because otherwise you won't keep up with the person who does the job that you do with AI, right? And so I use it all the time. Like, I used it to prepare for this podcast, right? And I just threw a
Nice.
bunch of stuff in there about you, about some of the talking points that I have recently, and I got like a little, like, a bulleted list of things. "Hey, Chris, make sure you talk about this," right? And it's like, I probably, that would have taken me an hour to prepare normally, but I've used it enough now that it's like, oh yeah, cool. Like in 5 minutes, and I'm like, "Yep, those look good," and now I have my set of notes to go forward. Because that's a nice augmentation. I think of it, in construction, people get worried that it's going to take their job, and I just don't think that's a reality. I think of it very similar to when the nail gun showed up in construction.
Mhm.
No carpenters lost their job because we now had pneumatic nail guns, right? There was probably a few of them who were upset that the guy who got a pneumatic nail gun while he was still hammering away over there, and the next week he was at Home Depot, Lowe's, pick your, buying one because he wanted to keep up, right? And I think we're going to see that same thing here, but we still have the same number of carpenters. Well, we have less because they're retiring, but that's a whole different story. But the reality is, like, it just makes them better and faster at their job. So maybe they can spend a little bit more time cutting in, the molding around something, and a little bit less time having to nail things in, so it just gets a little finer on the detail. We just get better at what we do when we use these tools.
Yeah, for sure. It makes sense. I mean, these tools are available to anyone in most cases, right? So
Hmm.
it's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything that I didn't cover or you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I think the big thing, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is like we just put out this report on the future state of construction. And it really talks about these four transformational areas in our industry that I think are happening right now, right? And that is, how do we change the way that we're more productive? How do we change what the future workforce looks like, and how do we engage with that workforce? How do we change how we make decisions and move away from just like from the gut all the time to being informed by data and insights? And then what's going to happen in design? Because I'm a strong believer that we're going to see this big shift that's going to happen. That is, design is going to be more done by builders in the future than it will be maybe designers are doing today. And I know that can be a little bit controversial. And I think when we were doing our research for this report and we were talking to thousands of customers and about what the future of construction, this is like some of the AI stuff was happening at the same time. And so our timeline was like 5 to 8 years. This stuff would become a reality. And now I'm like, this some of this stuff could be real in like 2 years. And so like I think of, people ask me like, well, what's the report for? And it's like, well, it's our forecast for the future. I've changed my tone on that. This is now a challenge. This is not a report. It's not a forecast. It's a challenge of how fast we can get there. And so my thing that I would say is like, if you haven't seen the report, and this is great for anybody who's a contractor, a manufacturer, an owner, a supplier, anywhere in the supply chain, just take a look at it because it'll get you to think about some of the things that I think are going to start impacting our industry or already are, but are going to accelerate. And then think about how those things could impact your business and how you would plan differently moving forward.